All right, today we are going to dive into the three fundamental ways machines actually learn. This is the engine behind so much of the AI we hear about every day, and we're about to break down exactly how it all works. So let's get right into it.
Just think about it for a second. Your email magically knows what junk mail is. Netflix seems to know exactly what you want to watch next, and, well, some cars can literally drive themselves through traffic. These things aren't just programmed with a million if-then rules. They actually learn from experience. But how? That is the big question we're going to tackle today. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with what I like to call learning with a teacher. Then we'll see what happens when a machine has to find patterns on its own. After that, we'll get into the really dynamic stuff with learning from trial and error. And finally, we'll have a little showdown to see how they all compare and figure out when to use which tool for the job.
Okay, first up, we've got the most common approach you'll find out there. Supervised learning. And really, the name gives you a massive clue. There's a supervisor or a teacher guiding the whole process. This analogy is just perfect. Seriously, imagine you're a student and you're given a massive stack of math problems to practice. But here's the kicker. You also get the answer key. So you try a problem, you check your answer, you see where you went wrong, and then you adjust how you think for the next one. That is the core idea of supervised learning in a nutshell. So what this really means, technically, is that the machine gets data that's already been neatly labeled for it. We're talking about feeding it thousands, maybe millions of pictures, and every single one is tagged. This is a cat. This is a dog. The model makes a guess, checks the label to see if it was right, and over time, it slowly but surely learns the patterns that make a cat and a dog a dog. And you see this in action every single day. That spam filter in your inbox? It was trained on countless emails that a human had already marked as spam or not spam. It's also great for predicting things with a continuous value, like figuring out the price of a house based on its size, location, and all that good stuff. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. To create that answer sheet, you need actual humans to sit there and create all those labels. Labeling millions of images or sorting through mountains of emails takes a huge amount of time, effort, and money. And honestly, that's the biggest bottleneck for this whole method. So what happens if you don't have an answer key? What if you don't have any labels? Well, that brings us to our second style, unsupervised learning. For this one, I want you to think of the machine as a detective who shows up to a chaotic scene with zero instructions, just a room full of clues to sort through. Oh, I love this analogy. Picture this. You walk into a party. You don't know anyone. But after a few minutes, you start to notice groups forming, right? There's the cluster of people over there laughing loudly, the quiet group in the corner having a deep chat, and the folks tearing it up on the dance floor. You don't know their names or how they know each other, but you can see the patterns. A machine running unsupervised learning is doing that exact same thing, but with data. So what's happening here is we're giving the model a massive, messy pile of unlabeled data. No cat or dog tags, no spam labels. The algorithm's one and only job is to dive in and try to find interesting structures, clusters, or patterns all by itself. And trust me, you've seen this one too. You know when an online store says, hey, customers who bought this also bought that. That's clustering at work. It's grouping you with other shoppers who have similar tastes. It's also amazing for finding the weird outliers in a sea of data, like spotting a credit card transaction that looks so unusual it might just be fraud. The real challenge here, though, is figuring out what it all means. So the algorithm might create 5 different groups of customers. Okay, but what did those groups represent? Are they bargain hunters, high-end shoppers? Since there's no official answer key to check against, a human has to step in, look at the results, and make sense of the patterns the machine found. Okay, and that brings us to our third and final style of learning, which is all about action and consequences. This is reinforcement learning. And believe me, this is where AI gets really interesting and dynamic. This is honestly the most intuitive way to think about it. You're training a puppy. You say, sit. If the puppy sits, it gets a treat. That's a positive reward. If it jumps up and licks your face instead, it gets nothing. Over many, many tries, the puppy learns that the action sit is the one that leads to the best outcome, the treat. So in the world of reinforcement learning, we have what's called an agent. That's our AI. And it exists inside an environment, which could be anything from a chessboard to a video game to the actual real world. The agent tries taking actions. For each action, the environment gives it back some kind of feedback, either a reward or a penalty. The agent's entire goal is to learn through pure trial and error the sequence of actions that will get it the most possible rewards over the long run.
This is the absolute magic behind those AIs that can beat the best human players in the world at incredibly complex games like Go. Think about that. The AI wasn't taught the best moves. It learned them by playing millions and millions of games against itself and just getting a simple reward for winning at the end. It's the same core principle that's crucial for robotics and for the split-second decisions a self-driving car has to make. Of course, all that incredible power comes at a steep price. This trial and error process can take an unbelievable amount of time and a staggering amount of computing power. Just imagine an AI trying to learn how to walk in a simulation. It's going to fall down, and I mean fall down, millions of times before it finally figures it out. So there we have it. We've met our three big contenders: the studious student with the answer key, the clever detective finding clues on their own, and the persistent pioneer learning from trial and error. Now, let's put them all side by side and see how they really stack up against each other. Looking at this chart makes everything crystal clear, doesn't it? Supervised learning absolutely needs that labeled data to make its predictions. Unsupervised gets a big pile of unlabeled data, and its job is to discover some hidden structure. And then there's reinforcement learning, which doesn't start with the dataset at all. It just learns from rewards to figure out how to win. And look at that last row. That's a huge deal. Only reinforcement learning is built from the ground up to make decisions and act in real time. You know, if you want the absolute simplest way to remember the difference, it's this. The first two, supervised and unsupervised, are all about the kind of data you start with. Do you have the answers or not? Reinforcement learning is totally different. It's all about the goal you're trying to achieve through a sequence of actions. All right, now for what might be the most practical part of all of this. Knowing the difference between them is great, but how do you know which approach to actually use when you're faced with a real-world problem? Well, it pretty much boils down to this simple set of questions. First, do you have a bunch of labeled data and a very clear target you want to predict? If yes, you're going to use supervised learning. Second, do you just have a huge data set and you want to explore it to see what hidden patterns might be lurking inside? That's a job for unsupervised learning. And finally, does your problem involve an agent that needs to make a series of decisions over time to reach a goal? Then reinforcement learning is your champion, hands down.